Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with a video.
I have a small family, and we are pretty comfortable. My parents died when I was 3, so my aunt gained custody of me, and I moved to live with her. My auntie tried her best to make sure I didn't lack anything, especially the love of a mother, and I am grateful to her for that. Of course, my mother is irreplaceable, but she did a fine job at raising me. She had 3 children, and when I joined the family, I just fit right in and we became inseparable. Most people didn't know that we were actually cousins and not siblings. I didn't care if they did, but my aunt preferred it this way. And now I am a full-grown woman with some marital problems I wish I didn't have. I would start from the beginning. I met this guy while going on an early morning jog. He looked so attractive, and when he approached me, I instantly had butterflies. There was this instant spark. We talked like we had known each other for years and years. He was lovely to be with and understood me. When it was time to meet his parents, I was so excited, and it turned out that his mom was my mom's longtime best friend. I personally didn't remember her because I was a kid when I moved away, but when we got talking, we found out, and she even had pictures of my mom and I when I was younger. It's a small world. We couldn't believe that somehow we were brought back together, and we both missed my mom so much. You can imagine that the wedding took place very quickly because she definitely wanted me to be part of her family for real. Even till today, when I tell anyone the story, it baffles me. I like to say that my parents were watching over me, and that's how we met again. I had the best relationship with my mother-in-law. She was like my mom, and she reminded me a lot of her. Sometime in May last year, my mother-in-law qualified for the American lottery. It was a dream come true because we wanted a better life for our families. Though she wished she could bring everyone along, we knew that that wouldn't be possible, at least at first. It was an unspoken reality, and everyone probably thought about it. So who would mother-in-law take with her to America? She was definitely taking her husband, but who else? The funniest thing happened about a month after. My husband started acting up. He became distant and treated me like I did everything wrong, and he even quit his job. I couldn't figure out what the issue was, so I confided in my mother-in-law, and she told me to be patient with him because every marriage has their unique bumpy rides. However, she assured me that she would try to find out what the problem was. We were no longer happy together. He didn't buy me gifts anymore like he used to, or help me out with the house chores. We were like strangers in the house. I tried everything to get him to speak to me about what the issue was, but he dismissed me. I wondered if the problem was that we both married very young. I was 20, and he was going to be 21. One evening, I went to him to speak about what was going on in our marriage. I had done my hair and looked lovely because I thought it would remind him that he loved me. Instead, he got angry and said that he wanted a divorce. I wasn't expecting that. 2 months ago, we were so happy, and all of a sudden, he wants a divorce, and I don't remember any recent fight or argument we had. We rarely quarreled because we understood each other. Him wanting a divorce hit me real hard. Why would he want a divorce? I kept thinking if I did something wrong and didn't know. I even wondered if there was something in my past that he found out, but I couldn't think of anything. After a week, the divorce papers were sent to me, and I refused to sign them. That got him very aggravated, and he almost hit me. He said he hated that I was always so stubborn and wouldn't listen. That episode made me sign the papers. If it had gotten to the extent of him almost hitting me, then I would sign the papers. I have never cried the way that I did on that day. I loved him too much for him to drag my heart in the dirt the way he was doing. If I got an explanation of how we got to a divorce, at least I would know that there was a valid reason. But every time I asked, I got none. Mother-in-law was upset as well because he wasn't talking to anyone about what was going on. She got his father to speak to him, and he said that getting a divorce was one of the hardest things for him to do, but he also wanted his mom to pick him, to go with her to America, and he knew he wouldn't qualify if he was married, even though he was still under 21. His dad was disappointed in him and told him that he was thinking only about himself and no one else, which was very wrong of him. He sacrificed his marriage for something that was not certain. Father-in-law told mother-in-law what my husband said, and with that she made her decision. She had been thinking of who to bring along with her. She had also wanted to share some of the monetary benefits, but she wasn't sure how to allocate it yet. The stunt that my ex-husband pulled disqualified him. She picked her husband and her daughter, who was 15 years old, to move with her, and she gave me a lump sum of money while my husband got nothing but disappointed faces. My mother-in-law told him that even if he was divorced, there was no guarantee that he would meet the criteria, and she could have easily traveled first and after a few years helped the rest of us come to America. My ex-husband, it feels really painful to call him that, made a huge mistake, and he got nothing for his greed. Mother-in-law traveled with father-in-law and sister-in-law a week ago. My ex-husband moved out of our house. He tried to apologize and get back with me, but I thought that it was ridiculous of him to think that I would still want anything to do with him. He became miserable and started to drink a lot, and sometimes when he was drunk, he would call me to apologize, and he wouldn't stop crying on the phone and begging me to take him back because he made a huge mistake. He said he did it for both of us, so that when we left for America, we would have a better life. If he thought that us getting a divorce so that he could travel was an option for me, then he really didn't know me that much. I stopped answering his phone calls because they were becoming unhealthy for me. Getting over him is by far the hardest thing I have ever had to do, and I wish I didn't have to, but it was hurting me too much. I wonder why I didn't see this character flaw before. I had never noticed that he was greedy, but what I do know was that once something came to his mind and he considered going for it, nothing could change his mind about it, even if he knew it wasn't a good idea. There was no going back from this, and I had to figure out a way to move on. Initially, I was considering forgiving him, but I thought that if something else came up and he had to sacrifice, he wouldn't, and I wasn't ready to put everything on the table while he would only be willing to take half measures. If there is anything I have learned, it is that half measures don't cut it. You are either all in or out completely. Mother-in-law kept pleading on his behalf, but I had made up my mind. She told me that even if he was her son, what he did was unspeakable. She wished our marriage didn't turn out the way it did. She had been there for me throughout the divorce process, which was one of the hardest times in my life. I wished it was a bad dream I could wake up from. Mother-in-law is now settling in, and we speak almost every day. Every time we got to speak, she always expressed her dissatisfaction about what my ex did, but she was more of a mother to me in those moments than my ex-mom. The way she reminded me of my mom a lot always brought tears to my eyes. I wondered what my mom would do if she saw me going through this much pain. I made up my mind that I would live my life to the fullest. I took myself out and pampered myself in every sense of the word. After all, my marriage went in for the money, so I could as well enjoy it. My friends would usually come to my house once in a while to check up on me, and we would pray together. I didn't want to tell them what was going on until I saw them, so when they visited me, they were in shock when I told them what had happened between my ex and I. It was almost unbelievable that because he wanted to immigrate, he would divorce me. I had decided that after we got married, I would start an online business, but I never got to do that. The divorce somehow gave me a reawakening, so I started. I am more aware of myself, my goals, and what needs to be accomplished. I found a course online with the help of sister-in-law for me to learn about marketing, and I'm excited for the journey. I don't know if I'm ready for any new relationships now, or if I ever will be, but I am hopeful for what the future brings. Excited even. NTA, your husband is tough. How could he think of divorcing you so he could go to America? His chances of being approved were already very slim. I think what happened to him wasn't just greed but also ignorance, because I don't think he did proper research. If he wanted to move, he would have just said it to your mother-in-law, and I think she would have helped both of you come in when she was settled in America. I'm glad that you are taking your life by the hand now and driving your life. Don't let anyone who wasn't sure of themselves in the first place deter you from who you are becoming. I'm rooting for you. Mother-in-law is the best. She didn't give him anything, and that serves him right. Enjoy your money, girl.
Next story.
My brother looks pretty wild. He's always had a new hairstyle. Mullet, buzzed, mohawk. Bright hair colors, facial piercings, and he's covered in tattoos. It's his body, so none of this bothers me normally. However, my wedding is coming up. We're having a beach wedding, and he's a groomsman. I literally do not care what hairstyle he has or what his piercings and tattoos will be visible. My only request is that he covers one specific tattoo. When he was in college, my brother drunkenly got a vagina tattooed on his chest. As it's a beach wedding, the groundsman will be wearing slightly open button-down shirts and the tattoo will be visible. I asked if he'd be willing to cover for my wedding, and he got immediately offended, saying it's his body, his choice. He's now refusing to attend the wedding if he has to cover it. I get it's his body, but I really don't want my guests to have to stare at a vagina during my wedding, and I don't want to look back at my wedding photos and see a vagina. While my family is used to it, my fiancé's family would probably be taken aback, if not offended by it. He called me a bridezilla and was unreasonable. AITA? This blew up while I was sleeping, so apologies for not answering any questions. I just want to clarify a few things. My fiancé chose what the guys will be wearing, not me. It's a casual beach wedding, so their shirts will only be 2 buttons unbuttoned. My fiancé thought that would be enough to cover the tattoo, but it isn't right in between my brother's pecs, lengthwise, so about a third is still visible, which makes it evident it's a vagina. My brother and I have always been super close, so this is why his reaction really confused me. I can never imagine getting married without him there, and it surprises me he'd be willing to miss my wedding over this. We offered for all the groomsmen to completely button their shirts or wear undershirts as a compromise, but he said that now that he knows either of those solutions would just be to cover his tattoo, we are censoring his expression of freedom. No little kids will be there, but there will be a couple of teenagers under 18. NTA, hey bro, seeing as it's my big day, and I've waited for this moment forever and spent thousands of dollars, and it's a celebration of my love for my partner, can you put away that huge gaping vagina on your chest for a few hours? Oh my gosh, that's so controlling. Literally bridezilla. How dare you ask me politely not to flash the graphic image of my giant chest pussy at an event celebrating you and your partner that you spent thousands on and have been waiting forever for, which children will possibly be present at? Sounds to me like him uninviting himself is a blessing if he behaves like that.
Next story.
I, 20, female, live in an apartment next to a family of 3. I've often watched over their kids, Sally, 8, and have been doing so since the mom, Gazelle, became pregnant 6 months in. Recently, Sally asked me how babies are made. The explanation I gave her was, mommies and daddies have eggs, and when they decide to share eggs, the eggs go into mommy's belly for incubation. The egg stays there for a while and grows, and when it's done, out comes a baby. I thought it was pretty kid-friendly explanation. However, Gazelle did not think so. She said she didn't like how I talked about sperm and stuff. I literally didn't. She was standing at my door so all the neighbors could hear, and she was yelling at how irresponsible I was, how she didn't approve, etc. I do not think I deserve that, but it was her child, so her rules, so I apologized. Gazelle asked me to take care of Sally again, and I said that I wouldn't be taking care of her again. When she asked why, I told her I obviously don't know how she wants to raise her child, and I wasn't going to get yelled at again. She tried to apologize and say she was just having a rough day, pregnancy hormones, and how my explanation was pretty inappropriate. I know she's been having it rough, but I still didn't really want to. AITA? I was not paid to take care of Sally. I did it for free. I understand that I shouldn't have gave her an explanation, and I already apologized, which I mentioned in the post. I wasn't really thinking, and my mind just went to giving the best explanation I could think of instead of not telling her anything at all. Also, a lot of people don't like my explanation, which is fine. I just tried to give a simplified version that I thought was age appropriate. Also, some people are asking why I said the eggs go to incubate in mommy's stomach. Giselle is having twins, which is why I said eggs, and then each egg makes a baby. However, I realize why I shouldn't have answered and have admitted to my fault. What I'm asking is, I have now received an apology from Giselle, but honestly don't want to accept it. This was my first mistake, and she reacted to it by yelling at me in front of all our neighbors with not the kindest words. Her excuses seem to be that what I did was extremely wrong, which is being debated in the comments, pregnancy hormones and bad day. She does work on top of being pretty pregnant, so I do sympathize, but I'm still very upset about how she treated me. So AITA for not wanting to take care of Sally anymore? Hi everyone, thank you for all your input. I was conflicted because I was really upset at how she treated me, but I also understand pregnancy hormones and stress. But I wasn't sure if that was an acceptable excuse, which is why I came here. I decided that I did not want to babysit Sally again, even if Giselle decided to pay me, for which she never mentioned. I told Giselle, who said I was being too unfair, so I actually sent her this post. She somehow missed all the comments saying she was in the wrong for screaming at me and used all the comments bashing my explanation to validate herself. I told her, since my explanation was so bad and I'm clearly an a-hole, I shouldn't be put in charge of Sally and to not ask me any more, and I blocked her. Some people brought up being a positive role model for Sally, and while I would love to be so, I'm just living in the apartments because it's close to my university, which I'm graduating from next year. So obviously, I'm not going to be around Sally forever, and I don't want to deal with Gazelle again. I do feel bad for Sally, but at the end of the day, her parents are in control of how she is raised. For everyone still debating the explanation, it was just the best, simplified, kid-friendly explanation I could come up with when put on the spot. I know now to redirect the question back to the parents. Still, thank you for your advice. As a nanny, I have learned to respond, I'm glad you asked. That's a great question to ask Mommy when she gets back. I know you're 20 and inexperienced, but in future, don't talk to other people's kids about sex if you don't want them mad at you, even if the kid asks directly. It doesn't necessarily make sense, but it's very, very common for parents to feel this way. NTA because you didn't know. NTA, it was not cool that you used your own approach to teaching a kid about how babies are made. Every family has their own approach, and every teacher in the world will tell you that you need to let the parents do it. It was completely an a-hole of her to yell at you, especially in public. And for that, she lost a babysitter. You're not an a-hole to help her learn that there are real-world consequences for temper tantrums.